Welcome back to the final episode of this year for the college football edition before we turn our attention to college basketball. Welcome back to the Riggedy Report. This week on the show, obviously, we are going to dissect the national championship game that will be taking place out in Glendale, Arizona, Monday night, as well as talking about the matchup that happened at Allen Fieldhouse on Big Monday between the first-ranked Kansas Jayhawks taking on second-ranked Oklahoma. An ESPN and a classic all around. And we'll talk about that. And we'll also chime in on some NFL action and talk a little bit about this year's draft class and where I believe the first two picks will be and where they will go. But before we get to anything else, we want to talk about this national title game. I believe this year's national championship is maybe the best we've seen in a while. I know we're only 2 years into the playoff system. Last year, obviously, Ohio State was very well favored in that game against Oregon. I think it was a little closer than it should have been. But with these two teams, Clemson and Alabama, matching up with each other Monday night in Glendale, I see Clemson hanging in with Alabama. Now, we know about what Alabama went up against in Michigan State. I'll be completely honest that I don't think Michigan State should have been there. And I love Michigan State, love Sparty. My boy Chris Fry's on that team. But it's either they shouldn't have been there or they weren't prepared. And the one thing I saw most was Connor Cook did not look comfortable. And he targets one receiver and he'll look to one side of the field, but he won't look back to the other side. And that's what I took away from that game that hurt Michigan State. But you got to give it to Alabama. Alabama played a full four-quarter game, and I expected Derrick Henry to have a bigger game than he did, but he still has one more game to put this put a bow on this season before turning his attention to the NFL draft. On the other side, for Clemson, it was a rough and toughened game down in South Florida in Miami against Oklahoma. Was very surprised. I'll be completely honest. Was very surprised on how they responded. I thought Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma would have come in guns a-blazing and ran roughshod over them. But I was very intrigued on how Dabo Swinney prepared his boys. Watching the coverage leading up to that, there was a different focus there than I've seen throughout the rest of the year. And it started with the pregame interview he had on the field with Holly Rowe. They were there for a business trip, not a fun trip. I understand it's South Beach. I understand those ladies on South Beach. You gotta love them. But they came to win. And that is what I love about Clemson, is their will to win. Their will to win is, you know what? We're going to run roughshod over you if that's all we do. And I believe it'll be interesting to see in this game where it goes. I believe Deshaun Watson will have a big game. My picks are coming up later in the show. But turning our attention to some college basketball. I really do expect college basketball season to have some great parity. And it started Monday night in Lawrence, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. That was a game for years to come. Triple overtime. Where is Buddy Hield when you need him? Scoring 46 in 59 minutes of a 60-minute game. Are you kidding me? That is college basketball at its finest. Two powerhouse teams going at it. I don't know if you're excited for college basketball, but this is where I shine. Come to me in March and have me fill out a bracket for you. You will not lose, I can tell you that. But it's exciting to watch this Oklahoma team, and then we'll get to Kansas. But just to see how they go about their business. Buddy Hield, love that kid. You'll hear from my guest later in the show, my boy Parker. You'll hear him agree with me a lot. But I believe this is Oklahoma's Big 12 to lose. I understand on Kansas you got Perry Ellis, but I really do think in a dogfight, I'm going to take Oklahoma over Kansas. I understand Kansas has won 10 straight Big 12, titles, but I think that stops this year. Turning our attention to some NFL games this weekend, the game I'm going to talk about, and the only game I'm going to talk about, is the Bengals. We know about Marvin Lewis' success in the playoffs. Not very good, but I don't think A.J. McCown can lead this team. I'm going to start right there. It's going to be interesting. I mean, they're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it'll be a really interesting matchup to watch. And it's not even that. I don't expect the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. The team I'm looking at to win the Super Bowl is the Arizona Cardinals. That team is built to win a Super Bowl. Had a conversation with my good friend Chase Greenley last night, and he said to me, "Why do the Bengals trade Carson Palmer?" And I simply said to him, It's like the Columbus Blue Jackets with Rick Nash. You need to build a team around your quarterback in football. Hockey, they put no one around him. And that's why he ultimately decided he wanted out of Columbus. But not talking about hockey on this show. I'm sorry, you hockey fans. But the Bengals did not build a team around him. And I believe that is exactly why he left. But let's turn our attention to the NFL draft, and where I believe the first two draft picks are going to go. I believe Joey Bosa will go off the board number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, and I believe Derrick Henry will go second overall to the Cleveland Browns. Parker and me will be talking about this on the interview show. Is the Browns need a quarterback, and where do they go? And you'll hear in our conversation some of the quarterbacks that are in this draft class that could possibly go if the Browns decide to take a quarterback. But I believe they're going to take Derrick Henry, and obviously you'll hear me say I believe Derrick Henry is overrated. I do believe he is. He hasn't had very good games lately. Excuse me, and I just. But I see the Browns taking a chance. Now, Browns fans, you out there, you probably hear that every year. We're going to take a chance on this player and hope they come out. I'll be completely honest. Lately, the best person you've taken is Johnny Manziel. Not going to lie. I believe Johnny Manziel is a perfect fit in Cleveland. Before we wrap up this show, you got to get my pick for this national championship. And I am going to go out and say the Clemson Tigers will beat the Alabama Crimson Tide Monday night in Glendale, Arizona. It should be a great game. And I'm gonna sport my inner Dickie V right now. It'll be awesome, baby. In Glendale. And I can't pick Alabama. I just can't. I know watching the game last week, but Michigan State, I don't think should have been there. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to say that because I'm a Big Ten homer all the way, living here in Columbus. But I believe Deshaun Watson will have a breakout game. I got the Clemson Tigers winning 31-27. We would like to thank you for joining us on the final edition of the College Football Rig Report for this year, starting next Thursday. Date might be changed, but we're shooting for Thursday. Will be our first official college basketball show. We would like to thank you for joining us on this week's show. Don't forget to check out my interview with Parker.